not degrading. They're great young players. These are the game winner.
Stephen Curry gets the first shot in for Team Shaq.
A lot. You know, it's listen, we're trying to anything. You know, I use the analogy like when your kids mess up the house, you make them clean
Very
it up.
entertaining slam dunk once again. He's done a great job. And Stephen Curry, Rainmaker.
That's teammate on teammate crime right there.
That's Reggie. Shots fired. Stephen Curry, a running three-pointer.
Sometimes you have to ignore the hate. Don't have the MVP.
His warm-up routine.
They need to leave him on the floor, too.
Yeah.
Oh, Steph. Don't do it to him.
He said, I told you.
He's playing it too short. Putting the guys in the yay area.
Curry for three. Come on.
How you doing today, Coach?
Good, feeling good.
Feeling good?
A bit tired. It's a bit early and
Yes, I am.
late last night.
Late last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a late last night for me as well. I was up watching a few YouTube clips of some of the All-Star game, just kind of prepping myself for today's show. Then looking at some high school games for some games that we have coming up for against certain high schools that we're playing.
Mm-hmm.
So it was in between checking out things for the show and then checking out things for more games that we have before the season is over with. So
That's true.
a little bit of that, but yeah, how's your week been so far?
Pretty solid. I mean, just staying busy with all the norms. You know, whether it's coaching, whether it's classes, whether it's just family things. It's just back in the groove of things for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Did you watch the All-Star game?
Absolutely not. I did not watch one event that weekend, and I don't think I missed much.
You missed a whole lot of nothing.
Right.
Yeah, a whole lot of nothing. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But to start it off, let's play our game, Coach. Let's play our game. Who's cooking and who should stay the fuck out the kitchen? Number one on who's cooking. Since you didn't watch this, I'll lead off.
I saw his though.
Of course.
I saw some highlights.
Okay.
A little bit.
Let's start off with who's cooking. Number one, Mac McClung. First time ever, three-time slam dunk champion in the NBA. I just want to point out that this player is actually not in the NBA. They have only played 5 games for the NBA in their entire NBA career. They are a residential G League player that somehow always finds himself on a one-day contract for an NBA team on the day of All-Star so that he can compete in the Slam Dunk Championship. And I think it has become a form of a show, form of a circus. That he has won 3 times. Not saying that he's not a good dunker, which I think he does have some good dunks in him and that he is very creative, but he has not been going against any other type of competition that you will warrant a slam dunk contest to be. He hasn't gone against the Zach LaVines, the Aaron Gordons, the John Morants, the Zion Williamsons, the Jalen Greens, the Anthony Edwards. You know, the list can kind of go on and on from there. He's gone against some decent competition. I think one year he went against Jaylen Brown, but Jaylen Brown isn't like a creative dunker like that. He's just more so like a standard power dunker. But he's a 3-time slam dunk champion who doesn't even play in the NBA. Mm-hmm. So that should tell you so far where the NBA is as far as their all-star events goes. But how do you feel about Mac McClung taking home the 3-time trophy?
I mean, when he was in high school, I followed him very closely at Gate City. He was actually one of the best players in his class. 5-star recruit going into Georgetown. Mm-hmm. And then just things didn't translate to the college game. And then he transferred to Texas Tech, I think, in 2020-2021 season, I believe. And, yeah, his game just never really translated to the college game, which was the surprise because in high school, he was a 3-level guy. You know,
Right.
like he could score on all levels. He played great defense. He was quick, of course, uber athletic. But again, that's one of the examples where it's like, all these NBA guys were the guy in high school, and
just about.
he just couldn't translate it. But I mean, I've been watching him since then. I seen the type of dunks he's done. Like I've seen him like post on his socials, or people post on their socials when he's just in the gym dunking. When he was even in high school, the guy's just creative. He's so creative with his dunking, and he's able to actually perform all the dunks. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not like he's performing it 3 times and he can't hit one. It's like it's either 1 or 2 tries and he's making it. So yeah, I mean the dunk over the car was sick though. That thing was pretty cool. First time.
Yeah,
what was that? Was that the first time since Blake Griffin somebody tried to do that shit?
No, I think he did something. I don't know if he did a car,
It was a car.
but I think it might be the last time since maybe since Blake Griffin. Maybe you're right, since Blake Griffin. I feel like somebody else did it after.
I
that,
feel like
but,
somebody tried, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, all I know is I haven't really paid attention to a slam dunk contest since the second time Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine went against each other. Since then, I haven't really paid attention to much slam dunk contests. I know that he's won, like I said, he's the last 3-time winner. I think he's won 3 in a row, technically. The last 3 years he's won it. So we'll see if he continues to compete. We'll see if he continues to go into the slam dunk contest, because at this point it seems like, one, he doesn't have anything else to prove regarding the slam dunk contest. But I think if he feels like, okay, if there's some top guys that shows up into the slam dunk contest, like the John Morants, the Zions, the Aaron Gordon, if he decides to come back, the Zach LaVines, like if those type of guys show up and he decides to go in, then I'll be interested to see if he can win when those type of guys show
for sure,
up.
no doubt.
But moving on to another winner on All-Star Weekend, Tyler Hero, who was also cooking. 3-point contest winner. I'm not going to say I'm surprised that he won. I just didn't think he would win.
Okay.
I thought Dame would be able to pull it out, but Dame, surprisingly, is very streaky from the 3-point line. He either has it or he can be very cold, which is not necessarily not like how he plays in the NBA. Like, there's nights where he can't hit a 3-point shot to save his life, and then there's nights where he can close his eyes and shoot from behind his back and it'll go in. So, surprisingly for me, Tyler Hero won. I did think Dame would win, but I mean, the 3-point contest at this point has become bigger than a slam dunk contest thanks to Stephen Curry.
Yeah.
But still one of those things where it's just like, okay, cool. I'm glad you won the 3-point contest. I'm glad that we're still doing this, but wasn't as glamorous as I thought it was going to be. How about you? How did you feel about the 3-point contest? Or did you even get to see a little bit of that? Did you see pieces of that one?
Yeah, I saw a couple of the highlights. I mean, like, again, I didn't watch any of it actually live or anything like that, or a rewind. I mean, the 3-point contest is just so diluted at this point.
Okay.
And I think it's a shame that
Yeah.
since nobody was able to get that the 30, make every shot like Craig Hodges did in his year, they had to find a way to break that 30, and then it was by doing these like Mountain Dew 4-point shots.
Yeah.
I get it, they're trying to change it, but it's like, man, like they're able to get over 30 and they're not even hitting every shot. You know what I mean? It's
Are you the grumpy old man that's saying go back to the way it used to be?
I really don't care, but it's like, damn, they really hoed Craig Hodges out of his perfect 3-point contest entry.
Well, I don't know if they're pushing it out of the way, because you still got to.
it happened,
still have to go perfect.
Right. I mean, it happened years ago though.
Yeah,
so it's like at that same time, I get it, but again, yeah, I mean, just not exciting at this point. I'd rather see Caitlin Clark go up against some of these guys. Like
Again?
No, that was Sabrina Ionescu.
that was Sabrina.
So I would love to see Caitlin Clark do it, but she rejected it. I think they approached her, but she didn't want to do it.
She probably doesn't want to do it because she probably doesn't want to lose. If there's a mystique around her, the mystique is similar to like Stephen Curry, where like people just want to see her in game.
True.
And sometimes when you're trying to protect your brand, you don't want to necessarily lose in spots like that. So I think if she does do a 3-point contest of any nature, she'll stick to doing it against WNBA players, which is more so where she is still making her mark and can claim throne to being like the best shooter in the WNBA, which is right now, better for her brand. I think that's another reason why they didn't do it again this year for Steph versus Sabrina, because I think had Sabrina won last year, then I think Steph probably would have wanted a rematch. Maybe she would have told him no rematch or something like that. But I think because Sabrina lost, I don't know if it's necessarily any reason for Kaylin to join. Maybe she might decide to do it later in her career, because Sabrina is kind of later in her career too. So maybe Kaylin might decide to do it then. But I think for right now, it's not necessarily useful for her brand to worry about doing a 3-point contest against anybody in the NBA. But moving on to our favorite part of the game. Who should stay the fuck out the kitchen? And number 1, LeBron James. Look, LeBron. And the reason why I got this, the reason why we have this graphic of the team that LeBron was a part of is because LeBron James decided 30 seconds before tip-off that he wasn't going to play. I'm kind of lying.
30 minutes.
It was more like 30 minutes, maybe even an hour.
Yeah.
Maybe he was graceful enough to give them an hour. But what was even more disturbing is that he took pictures in street clothes when they decided to do like their larger group photo. Everybody else was in there, all-star warm-ups, had their jerseys on, shoes and all that stuff, and my man was walking around in his street clothes and took a picture with the team in his street clothes like he was an assistant coach or something. And it's gotten to a point with LeBron where it's just like, see, these are the reasons why some people decide to not like him. Because, one, it's okay if you feel like, okay, I'm year 22 and I'm trying to save my body because I want to make a playoff push, yada, yada, yada. But I'm sure you knew going into the All-Star that you wasn't going to play. I don't think this was a decision that he made an hour before games were ready to start beginning. I'm sure he knew ahead of time. I don't feel the way that I normally feel. I'm trying to conserve my body and energy for the playoff push. This All-Star format I don't even like. So, what is this about? And it feels like, for me, LeBron James is setting a disrespectful tone for the rest of the NBA players to follow and essentially just kind of not give a damn about the All-Star game. And it's starting to feel a little like, okay, well, why are we doing this shit in the first place? Why is the All-Star game going on? If somebody like LeBron James is showing up being this blatant, like, fuck this shit, why do we still have it? And I think Adam Silver needs to really look at this and take this as a sign of disrespect and do something about it, in my opinion.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, it really seems like LeBron's kind of pushing himself to be bigger than the game.
I think he's been bigger than the game for a long time. I think now he's just showing us. Right.
And sure, but at the same time, it's like, you're still a part of the NBA as an organization and as a brotherhood at the end of the day. Right. And it's like, I actually saw, because just quick sidebar, and we'll get into this as we're going to transition to the All-Star game, but like, the NHL hockey has their own, like, they have their, like, All-Star break right now.
Right.
But it's country-based. It's not necessarily, like, the All-Star game like it's usually been.
Mhm.
They've got, like, some Four Nation shit going on, and it's been crazy. Like, the U.S. and Canada just played the other day, and Canada was booing the USA national anthem because of all the politics shit.
Right.
And what did they do in the first 9 seconds of the game? 3 fights broke out. Like, hockey players don't slow down, and a retired hockey player, PK Subban, actually came out and said, like, what are these NBA players even playing for? Like, they've lost their sense of actually playing, like, for the game and for the fans. Like, they've almost become just their individual entities.
Save that.
Yeah. So that's why I can't wait to get to that the All-Star game. But I think that's prime example of what LeBron's doing here. Is like he's just preserving himself, and it's like bigger than the game. But again, he could have at least done the due diligence of letting us know more than an hour or 30 minutes before the game.
Okay.
If he's got some left foot soreness, because that's what it is.
I think you need to say that a day or two before. It shouldn't be hours before. And the reason
so they can find a replacement, or even the day of, just a couple hours before.
Not even a day of. You got to do that 2 days before. And the reason why I say that is because you got to find a replacement that's willing to show up and be there.
Yeah.
You could have had LaMelo Ball. You could have had Zach LaVine. You could have had who else wasn't? Who else didn't make it? There's a few guys that didn't make it, but you could have had a lot more guys that would have probably loved to show up and get another All-Star bid. One, for the sake of just being there, and then two, for the sake of their contracts.
And the resume, too.
And the resume, because if you become an All-Star and get these All-Stars, it helps with you being able to get those extensions, Supermax extensions, and stuff like that. But moving on to the next person that should stay the fuck out the kitchen, and this is very similar to LeBron James, Anthony Edwards. Look, Ant-Man. Again, I got him with his group photo with his team. Ant-Man, I don't know where you are or what you're doing, but you're going to very quickly find out you're not the marquee name that you think you are. And what's going to happen is that the NBA is going to look at things like this and think twice about building their marketing around your image and who you are and your face. But I've heard something come out that said that Anthony Edwards actually doesn't want to be the face of the NBA. There's a quote out there saying that the face of the NBA should be Victor Wembanyama, based upon the fact that he doesn't necessarily want to deal with the scrutiny and all of the things that come with basically being the face of the NBA. Essentially, he doesn't want to be required to not be able to make mistakes, live his life, not deal with the, be able to not have to deal with the critiques, the critics, the criticism, and all of those things that come with being like the guy or the face of the NBA. So I think this could be strategy for him to basically tell the NBA not to bank on me, because I don't understand why so young as a rising star in the NBA, why would you not play? I mean, you could, at this point, you can go out there and just do a bunch of layups, fake like you playing some defense and stuff like that, because it's not real. You guys aren't playing hard.
That's what everybody else does anyway.
Exactly. Everybody's out there for cardio and shoot around. So I don't understand why he didn't play not 1 minute in the All-Star game, but you still suited up and came out and got your name called and all that stuff. It's like, dog, you could have went out there for 5 minutes. You didn't have to be out there long, but just to go out there to show up, get dressed, not put your best effort in, not to even try to get on the basketball court, and just essentially steal an All-Star moment is not really the best way to look. Like, a lot of these guys talk about Kobe and Mike and all this stuff, but I just want to say a lot of you talk about them, but Mike and Kobe would be ashamed of you guys. I know Mike is ashamed, and I know damn well Kobe is ashamed of what the fuck is going on. Like, I feel like if Kobe was around, he would be smacking the shit out of a lot of players right now. So I don't know what's going on with Anthony Edwards, but very similar to LeBron James, there's a high level of disrespect that I feel like is happening to the game of basketball and what I used to love about this game.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you there, man.
Anything you ready to move on?
Nothing to add there. Yeah, I mean,
all right.
It's the same thing, really.
Okay.
Like with the LeBron case.
All right. Well, let's move into the halftime report. Yeah. All right. Up top on the top of the docket. Let's get into this NBA All-Star game a little bit, Coach. So Steph won MVP, and a lot of people felt like, first of all, Steph's MVP was probably charity to the fact that he plays for Golden State, and the All-Star game was in San Francisco. It isn't like he scored a lot of points. The game was up to 40. So it wasn't even like it was like minute calculations. It wasn't like it was 4 quarters. There wasn't like 10 minutes a quarter, 8 minutes a quarter. It was just the first team to 40 will win that game. My question for you is, based upon how lackluster the All-Star game has become, how in your mind would you pitch to Adam Silver about how to fix this?
I don't think the problem is with Adam Silver. I think the problem is
not Adam Silver. How would you pitch to him how to fix this?
I don't know if there's a way you could even pitch it to him. I think it's the players, because again, I wanted to, since I did bring it up earlier, I do want to direct back to what I was talking about earlier about
Right.
PK Subban. These former Montreal Canadian, but now commentator in the NHL. Essentially, he said, I got a question for the NBA players. What the hell are you playing for? What are you playing for? It's not about the money. You make all the money. What? You're injured? Well, there's a difference between hurt and injured. Are you hurt or are you injured? There's a difference. In hockey, we play hurt, we play injured. That is the culture of the sport. It's always been that way. So you want to talk about the business, the CBA. Fans can get all of that, but what do fans resonate with? They resonate with what's real. And he was kind of hinting at, again, like the 3 fights in the 9 seconds in the other game. He said, you got to fight sometimes for your country. You got to compete. You got to go out there and leave it on the ice because those people are paying the price of admission. Again, we do know how expensive the NBA All-Star game is, and to see people just miss it out like that. And he did follow up, and this is why I'm talking about it being more of a player effort standpoint more than actually something that the NBA could change.
Okay.
He mentioned it was the players that did that for the 4 Nations, which is like their All-Star game or whatever this year. It's not the league. The league set it up, but the players went out there and decided, you know what, boys, we're all in. When is the NBA going to do that? Is what he said. I think it resonates so truly because at the end of the day, the NBA could try to put these guys in these, like, if they do like a one-on-one tournament for some extra cash. The guys make all the money in the world. They're making $300 million contracts. Do you think money is going to incentivize them to play harder? No.
No, but I think it just depends. But I'm gonna let you keep going.
Yeah, and then at the same time, I mean, could you maybe implement like East? If you do East versus West, whoever wins the All-Star game gets home court advantage, like something like that. I don't know,
In the finals,
right? But at the same time, you're gonna have guys in the All-Star game that won't be in the NBA finals and are playing for a play-in team or not in the playoffs at all, and for them, it doesn't matter. So I think there's just a lot of issues internally with the players. I don't necessarily think it's the brand or the NBA necessarily making the mistakes. I really just do think it's become a less of an effort thing. Like the last good All-Star game we had was in 2020. When it was in Chicago after Kobe passed away and they were wearing the 2 and 24 jerseys. It was the first time they did the target score. That game was great because it was close. It was 155 to 153.
Is that the first year where they made it the Kobe Bryant trophy?
Yes. Yeah, that was the first year. The first year they did the
Who won
target
that
score.
one? Was that Kawhi who won that one?
Kawhi won the Kobe Bryant MVP award, yeah. So
First one to win it.
That was the best one in recent years. Ever since then, it's taken the steady decline. Like at some point they went back to the East versus West format. I think it was last year. And then this year they went back to Chuck, Shaq and Kenny drafting teams.
So before, what they were doing was they were picking like the top leader on either side of the conference was the captain.
Yeah.
And then basically they would just go down the line.
That was also the first year they did that too. It was 2020.
Yeah. So they had captains. It was pretty much like pick me up basketball, like when you used to be in school or be at the playground and everybody would just line up and you had 2 guys captain. They would go, all right, I got you, and then somebody's like, I got you, and you just hope that you wasn't last type of thing. So that's what they did for 2020, and that's what they were doing for a minute. Then, like you said, they did go to back to an East-West for I think 1 season. But
I think it was 1 year.
Yeah, maybe it was last year. I'm not sure. And then this year they had a 4-team format of where you had the Rising Stars, then you had Shaq's top de la creme, the OGs. Then you had Kenny, who had all the young superstars.
Yeah, I don't know why he called it that when he had Jalen Brunson on his team.
I don't know. And then you had Charles Barkley, who wanted to get all the international All-Stars. So for me, I think there's 2 ways you can fix this. And one of them I like a little bit more than the other. So the guys who are picked as All-Stars, you have to turn the All-Star situation into a small in-season ceremony. So the guys who are picked to be All-Stars, they actually don't play in the All-Star game anymore. They just come, receive a check, or they can pick a fundraiser or some type of or some type of nonprofit or something, organization that they charity that they want to give the money to. And so each one of them can come up there with a member of the organization that they want to give their $125,000 to, or whatever the winnings is for being an all-star. And you give that to the organization. They come up, take a picture, do that as a ceremony. But then everybody else who potentially were in the running to be an all-star that just didn't make it, those become the guys that played the all-star game. And then depending on who wins all-star MVP that game, you're then guaranteed an all-star spot next season, regardless. Now, unless you get injured and you don't play, blah, 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 then that could be the ramifications or some of the ways that you can weed that person out. But I think whoever wins the all-star MVP, they're guaranteed a all-star spot. Maybe not the captain or something like that, but they're at least guaranteed to be awarded and represented as an all-star to where they can give money to a charity and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that's one way to fix it. Because I think what you need to do, the guys who are all-stars, those are the creme de la creme of the league. Those are the guys who are making $300, $400 million. They have nothing to play for. So you got to give guys that still working to get contracts or still needing to become all-stars so they can get those type of supermaxes, whatever the case may be. You need guys that are hungry to end up playing that game if you want a good game. So I think that's one way. The other way to fix it is to make it USA versus international. So international would include Canada and Africa and Europe. Yeah, so right. You would basically jumble them all together, and whatever stars you got internationally, they will be on one team versus the USA team. But the trick to this, to make it competitive, would be that you would have to tell the players, and this is where Adam Silver steps in, whoever dominates these all-star games between international players and USA players, that will then determine in the off seasons what type of players go to big markets and what type of players go to the smaller markets. So if you're a USA player and your USA team is losing in these all-star games, in the offseason when you're free agents and stuff like that, don't expect to go to Chicago. Don't expect to go to New York. Don't expect to go to LA. Don't expect to go to Miami. Expect that you're going to go to OKC. Expect that you're going to go to Sacramento. Expect that you're going to go to San Antonio. Something like that, you know what I mean? Because what makes most of these players who they are is the market. And a prime example of that is Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns has been in Minnesota forever. And it's not until he got to New York that now people are like, oh shit, Cat is this good. He's this dominant. Jersey sales going up. All-star votes were out the roof. All because he plays for the New York Knicks. He's been doing this in Minnesota. He's been the same player he's been in Minnesota. But now that he's with the New York Knicks, people see it completely different. People see him completely different. So I think if you are Adam Silver, you're telling these players, based upon your performances in this all-star game between the USA versus the international team, this will be a quiet representation of what players we need to have in the big markets to promote the NBA.
Yeah. I don't necessarily... just to go back to your first one, I feel like that just eliminates the all-star voting in general. Like,
no, because they still the all-stars.
They're what's gonna make them even bother? I understand giving to the nonprofit charities and whatnot, but they could choose to do that on their own. Some players care less about that than others. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's a good PR look. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, but at the same time, like what's gonna make them want to hop on a flight and go all the way over to LA next year, right? Where it is, or let's say it's in some other city because LA is a more obviously eye-attracting city.
Right.
Some guys might actually just want to go there just to go there, but I mean, let's say it was in like I don't know, like again, like Chicago, or if it went to like Milwaukee or like somewhere like that. Like what's the motivation then? But besides like the little PR that they would get, because there are going to be so many other players doing that as well. Like I don't necessarily see like a guy like Anthony Edwards jumping out of his boots to go and do that, like to have to go fly somewhere and do that.
I mean, I think it's more so that it would just look really bad to say fuck that organization that you can give charity to and not allow them and the people maybe because at that point you're doing it for the organization and the charity that you're giving the money to. So that All-Star Weekend becomes more so about them and their experience. So like, if you don't show up as the player, you're ruining the experience for that charity and that organization to have an All-Star Weekend experience if you don't participate. So you being an NBA player, you're kind of like the ambassador and the liaison for how this organization gets to be here. So if you don't show up, they can't show up. They can't really participate. So I think that's the key in the driving vehicle to get them to show up. So that way they don't get blasted out for being a terrible human being. Because at the end of the day, you're already not playing. You're already not giving your best effort. So now you want to be looked at as a terrible fucking person.
Yeah,
like I don't think they will want that.
Yeah, but to be fair, I don't think that's gonna help the All-Star game at all, like the actual game.
Well, it'll help the game because the players that are playing have something to play for.
Yeah, but nobody's gonna want to watch. No, nobody's gonna want to watch let's just if we looked at the guys that didn't make it, right? I mean, who would probably be your best guy?
Like Zion didn't make it.
Yeah, but Zion
LaMelo Ball didn't make.
Zion hasn't played like half the season.
I know, but okay, so like LaMelo Ball didn't make it. Zion didn't.
Right, and so
Brandon Ingram didn't.
Okay,
make
so
it.
that's my point. Like, are you really gonna pay the same amount of money to go to the All-Star game or take your time out of your weekend to watch an All-Star game that LaMelo Ball is the marquee guy when you still have guys like LeBron, Anthony Davis, Stephen Curry in the league? I don't think so. I would if
I know that they're gonna play. I would if I know that they're gonna play.
But
like
see, even then, like I see the whole point with them like being guaranteed like either a starter spot or a spot on next year's All-Star roster, but at the same time, like I don't necessarily see the incentive for the rest of the guys. Like, it's gonna be one clear guy that's probably going to get it. Like,
they gotta hoop for it,
right? So I mean, regardless, you could probably predict that the best guy there is probably going to win it if they are actually hooping, right? I think that
I don't know if it's that cut and dry because that's the point of playing basketball, right?
Well, for sure, yeah. But at the same time, like I just don't think that it's necessarily like it wouldn't be bad for like the game that's going to be played.
Right.
Of course, it would be more energy, effort, whatever. But at the same time, like it's still a product that you have to advertise on TV. And if your best advertisement tool is like LaMelo Ball and Zach LaVine, that does not get you the same amount of sales or views or clicks as it would if it's LeBron James and Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not the same output. And then just to quickly go to your next point, like I think if that really were the case where Adam Silver could just pick and choose, like, if you're a Team USA guy and you play like ass, like you're going to a small market, that would literally make Adam Silver like a dictator. And I don't think that's what the NBA is.
He can incentivize the owners. He can always incentivize the owners and have conversation with them.
Sure, but at the same time, I think owners have the best interests of their teams in place. Like it don't matter.
Do they?
Yeah, of course to make money, but exactly if you're a big market team, wouldn't you want the big market player? Like even if Anthony Edwards played like ass in the USA game, like
but if the big market players are showing up to be the international players, why the fuck am I worried about the USA players? If the international players are kicking their ass in the All-Star game, which is what the fans are watching, then the international players are showing up and saying, we're the marquee players. It's not a mistake that Giannis just recently said what he said about, I want to see more international players in the big markets. I think Jokic should go to New York. I think this person, like, it's not a mistake that he was saying that. He was saying it for a purpose, and he was saying it because he does believe that the USA players don't deserve the market share that they get in New York, in LA, in Chicago, and all of these other places. He's advocating for the international players to take over those big marquee markets. And so I think if you put together a situation where the USA players have to fight for their USA marketplace, and it's a conversation that the owners share amongst each other with Adam Silver that, hey, based upon this game, what do you lose if you got Giannis in New York versus Anthony Davis?
But in my opinion, if they do that, the NBA loses its integrity entirely.
Why?
Because then you're just you're incentivizing to play in one game for the entire season course.
For next offseason, yeah.
Yeah, and I just don't think that's necessarily a good route to go to, because if you're just going to have one night and one game determine how the next season might look for a lot of these guys.
How the next offseason is going to look.
Yeah, well, offseason, and then the guys are signing 4 or 5 year contracts.
Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Maybe it's 2-year deals, maybe it's 3. I don't know what the new
simply
But even if it is 4 to 5, why would you not want Giannis in New York?
I'm not saying I don't want Giannis in New York. I'm just saying that it doesn't make sense for Adam Silver to act like a dictator. And
it does, because if the U.S.
because at the end of the day, the GMs of these NBA organizations are going to want to put the best team together possible.
And the best team is the players that are trying to play the hardest.
Yeah, not for one night, but for the entirety of the 82-game season.
But they're proving in that game that they're the best players.
Anybody could show up for one night.
So Victor Wembanyama is not better than Anthony Edwards?
Did I say that?
Okay, so that's the conversation that we're having here.
But it's one night, and again, these players do get to pick and choose where they do go in the offseason. Like, let's not make that.
No, they don't get to pick and choose. They get signed.
Obviously, but you're telling me not everybody's pushing a contract to, let's say, Wembanyama or Anthony Edwards,
of course,
or the guy like
Giannis.
Of course they are. At the end of the day, Giannis is here sitting and talking about these international players going to bigger markets. You're telling me that none of the international players are getting offered to go to the bigger markets?
I think it has not been a big thing about it because the USA markets are dominated by USA players.
But I think that's only fair because it only hasn't been until recently where the international players are finally starting to.
I don't disagree with you.
So it's all recency bias,
right? But that now makes it the perfect time to make a move like that. Now that the international players have gotten to a point where you can argue who are better, them or the USA players, now is the perfect time to have this conversation about who should be dominating our big markets. Should it be the United States players still, or should it be our international players, especially when the NBA is trying to go global? Now is the perfect time to say our bigger markets should be dominated by the international players if they're more willing to participate in the vehicle of driving the NBA forward. When you got USA players like LeBron James showing up in street clothes, when you got Anthony Edwards before the game not playing, when you got the All-Star game looking like people don't even want to play basketball and most of it is dominated by USA players, when you got the slam dunk contest being diluted because USA basketball players that people want to see don't even want to be in the dunk contest, when you have all of that going on, why the hell are we still promoting these guys? Why would we still put them in our biggest markets? It's now making more sense to say if Victor wants to play, if Jokic want to play, if Giannis want to play, if Siakam want to play, Joel Embiid don't count no more because he never plays. But out of those 4 guys, just those 4 guys, you can argue that they're amongst the best in the league. Jokic is probably the best center. Giannis is arguably probably the best player. Wembanyama is probably the face of the NBA going forward after LeBron James and all of these guys get old and retire. Siakam is still around hooping. You got Shea from Canada, who is a young MVP candidate. Like, there's so many guys in the international space where putting them in a bigger market might actually serve the NBA better globally and arguably domestically, especially if these USA guys don't want to participate at the level that they should. So I think having that conversation about if you guys don't show up to the All-Star game and prove to the fan base why you guys should be playing in Chicago, why you guys should be the faces of New York, why you guys should be the faces of LA, Miami, and other places like that, we're going to move and pivot to the international players who want to have that space, who want to be the face of our bigger markets and help the NBA go forward. And I think that's a perfect game to do it in, because what other game has that many eyes, have that much viewership, is that much focused and centralized on the NBA outside of the All-Star game? maybe the finals, but outside of the finals, the biggest marquee game that has so much focus and so many eyes is the All-Star game. And you telling me if the international players don't come out there and wipe the floor with the USA players, that won't bold and make a difference as to who gets to be on the big marquee teams going forward? It will.
To me, I think we already saw what Team USA versus international looks like in the summer.
Yes,
we have the Olympics and the FIBA tournament for that reason.
But they were split. They didn't have all of it. It wasn't Victor, Jokic, Shea, Siakam on one team. That's a difference.
But we're talking about a USA team, which is one individual country, and we're talking about international, which is putting together
all the best international players on one team.
Right. So I mean that's completely different, and that isn't necessarily the fairest way to.
Why is that not?
Because again, you've got Giannis from Greece, you've got Wemby from France. I mean, does that necessarily make sense to do that? I don't know. Maybe I'm just yapping, but at the same time, I simply think that it just wouldn't make sense to do the whole thing of making it a dictatorship, because then again I simply think that the NBA loses its integrity by making its product seem that way, because then you lose the point and the necessary position of a GM, right? Because then you're just saying the NBA is run by the owners and the owners only. That GM
I mean, they are. We know that the teams are ran by the owners and the owners only.
So you're telling me that
you think any smart GM would do what the Bulls are doing?
Do you think Arturis is a smart GM?
No, but I'm just saying, do you think he's doing what he's doing without a mandate being sent down by the ownership?
I don't think it's coincidence that people try to put things together and then it doesn't work out and there's a fallout after that. Arturis tried to put something together that he thought in his brain was going to work, and now he's reaping the repercussions for it because it just did not work and he doesn't know how to get out of the situation. That's simply the situation in Chicago. I don't think it's necessarily owner-run by Jerry Reinsdorf. If it was a Jerry Reinsdorf decision, would he not keep Zach LaVine?
No, he wouldn't, because it's too expensive to keep him.
Yeah, but then if they're crap, they lose ticket sales, Coach.
They don't, because they're the Chicago Bulls.
They do though.
We talked about that though. We talked about how.
But of course they're still gonna make money, but they're not gonna make as much money if you do at least compete in games.
We'll get back to that. Now, let's move on a little bit. And we could be quick about this one. Do you think LeBron and Luka will work?
I mean, I think it would work. I saw it in the couple games they played together before the All-Star break. I think they complement each other's games well. I think it takes a lot of pressure off of LeBron that he does have a solidified ball handler and playmaker in Luka.
Right.
Another guy that could just go and score as well. You know, LeBron's kind of been lacking that. Of course, he had Anthony Davis, but Anthony Davis ain't the scorer that Luka is.
Yes, he is. They average almost close to the same amount of points per game.
Come on, dude.
They do. They average almost close to about the same points per game.
Anthony Davis doesn't create his own shots. It is created for him more than half of the time. That's how it's been all season.
No, Anthony Davis goes ISO a lot, bro. Off the wing against other big men, he goes ISO a lot.
I'm saying he's put in a position on the low post to do that.
No, a lot of the times he's outside of the low post. Only time he plays on the low post is when LeBron is absolutely on the floor. Anytime other than that, Anthony Davis brings the ball up. He is off the wing. He's going ISO. He's going against other big men, doing what he wants to do in between the legs and pulling up. He does what he wants to do when LeBron is on the floor.
I really hope this is clipped, because once it hits on Instagram that you said Anthony Davis is a better scorer, or
I didn't say he was a better scorer.
Luka?
I didn't say he was a better scorer.
Luka averaged over 30 points a game last season.
I didn't say he was a better scorer.
Okay, but you're saying the same scorer.
He scores about similar amount of points. They probably have a 5 to 6 points difference. Okay, it's not like Luka is out here scoring 40 and Anthony Davis is scoring 18 points per game. That's not the case. Anthony Davis is scoring between 24 to 28 points per game. Luka is scoring between 26 and 32 points per game. It's a 6 to 8 point differential, somewhere between that line. So it's like, you score maybe 4 to 6 points more than me. All right, cool. But you also have a usage rate that is out the roof. So you should be scoring more than me. You have the ball in your hands all the time in Dallas.
Okay, but
So, I mean, like, unless your argument is that Luka scores differently, then, yeah, he scores differently.
yeah, and that's the point, and that's why he scores more as well.
Because he has the ball in his hand all the time.
And what? Is that supposed to be a problem? Is that supposed to take away from the fact that he's just a better scorer than Anthony?
No, it's not that he's a better scorer. He just has the ball all the time. He does. He has the ball all the time. So, like, if I had the ball in my hands all the time, too, I could probably drop 30 points per game if I was an NBA player. That's the argument that most NBA players have. I can't score because I don't have the ball. I got to watch this guy have the ball. That's why people are complaining with James Harden sometimes. It was like you just sat there and waited for James Harden to pass you the ball. Same thing with Chris Bosh with LeBron James. Chris Bosh went and played with Miami. He was a 20-something point per game scorer. Once he got to Miami, he was pretty much Kevin Love, 16 to 18 points per game because he got to wait for LeBron James to give him an opportunity to shoot and score. Doesn't change the fact that Chris Bosh was one of the best scoring power forwards in the NBA before he got with LeBron James. It's just that when you play with certain guys, your averages are going to go down because they have a high usage rate. So that's simply all it is for me. But honestly, I think Luka and LeBron are going to work well only if LeBron decides to play the power forward position. That's the only way it's going to work. If LeBron James decides to play the power forward position and is willing to play on the post like he did in Miami in those earlier days, that's the only way it's going to work. He can't ask for the ball. He can't have high usage. He has to now turn it to Chris Bosh. And if LeBron James is willing to be Chris Bosh, cool. Because Austin Reeves is your shooter. Austin Reeves is your shooter now. He's the one that you got to give 15 to 16 shots to per game from the three-point line, because that's the way Luka plays. Luka is a drive and kick asset. That's how he plays. He drives and kicks, or he takes it ISO and does his own thing. Pick and roll, drive and kick. That's LeBron James' game as well. Pick and roll, drive and kick, or go ISO. So if Luka is taking the space of what LeBron does, then Austin Reeves becomes your number 2 option with the drive and kick shot. And now LeBron James has to turn into your third level scorer, your third option scorer, who's able to knock down some corner 3-point shots and get a little scrappy on the post. Now, if LeBron James is willing to do that, then they can work. But if you're asking me if you're going to go back and forth between tossing the ball to LeBron James and Luka on the perimeter, that shit ain't going to work.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it will work simply because of I think their play styles complement each other.
How? They're the same person.
They
play the same way. They play the same way.
Really don't.
They both have high usage. They both require pick and roll. They both require drive and kick and shooters around them. The only difference is Luka is a better shooter than LeBron James. That's literally the only difference. And they both play no defense.
I'm not even going to sit here and argue. Anyways, second part of the question, are they contenders? I don't think so because they don't have a big man still. They don't got Mark Williams. I don't think Jackson Hayes is a good enough big man. He's fast, he's athletic, but I think if they got Mark Williams, way more chance that they contend for a conference championship or a final run than they are now. Because I saw JJ Redick put a lineup out there where I think like LeBron was the 5 or something like that, and Rui was the 4. I get it, they could play fast like that, but when it gets to the playoffs, you can't necessarily play like that the entire time. You got to be able to have your big man dominance. You got to be able to rebound the ball. You got to be able to slow it down at points, and that 5 small lineup where your biggest guy is 6'8", 6'9", is not going to work in the playoffs. So I don't necessarily think that they're contenders. I don't think they were before the Luka trade. I think they're always just going to be play-in or 8th seed, 7th seed, play-in.
They're number 5 now.
Right. I think with Luka, maybe they win a couple more games. But, again, is that necessarily going to result, with more success in the playoffs? I don't think so. Depends on who they get matched up with. They got to get really lucky with whoever they get matched up with, to be honest.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Yeah. I don't really have much else. I just think that they're not going to. I don't think they're going to work. Only way they work is LeBron.
I thought you said that they would work.
No, they're only going to work if LeBron plays power forward.
Oh, okay.
If he becomes a third option.
Okay.
As long as Luka and LeBron are sharing the ball off the wing, it's not going to work because their games are similar and they don't complement each other. You have to put Luka You have to turn Luka into Dallas Luka unless Luka decides that he's going to become a spot-up shooter. Now, if Luka decides that he's going to become a spot-up shooter and LeBron James is the guy facilitating and holding the ball and doing everything, then cool. But I haven't seen Luka be a spot-up shooter his entire career.
I don't think we're going to see that now.
So, but moving on to the next segment. The Chicago Bears, obviously free agency is coming up. And I think free agency opens up in March.
Yes, it's actually before the draft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think when we had our conversations before, when we talked about how Saquon wanted to come to the Bears and how I was saying that the Saquon decision was decided before the draft, we were arguing about that. But that's because I knew that free agency is before the draft. Like it opens up before the draft and then it finishes after the draft. Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, how should the Chicago Bears, in your opinion, prioritize free agency? Should it be that they use their money on the offensive line, or should they use their money on the defensive line?
So, I mean, I think you really do have to ask yourself the question of what you're going to do in the NFL draft, because if you are planning on going O-line with one of your top 10 picks, it's being more and more rumored now that Will Campbell might actually drop to 10. Maybe Kelvin Banks is still there at 10. Like, you could probably get one of the more premier offensive linemen in the draft at 10, and then you could go ahead, use that 39, or we have 39 and 41 in the second round. Definitely use one of your second-round picks on O-line if you wanted to, right? I think it really does depend on what you believe you could get in the draft. If you think you could go out and get one of these one of the better trench players like Abdul Carter or Mason Graham, I think they go that route. There's this other kid, I think James Pierce or something like that, another D lineman. I think if they could go out and do that, I think they'll do that, because I think they're set now that I think in the offseason, as far as free agency, I think the two guys that they're going to target is they're going to try and get Trey Smith, because the franchise tag market opened up yesterday. So teams are now able to franchise tag players. Adam Schefter came out that it is very unlikely that the Chiefs franchise tag Trey Smith, but they transition tag, meaning that essentially another team gets to do negotiating with Trey Smith, and then the Chiefs have a chance to match it. It's like restricted free agency almost. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something that the Bears will do. I think they're going to try and go after him. I think that's probably the best place that he's going to land to. I don't know if he ends up choosing New England instead, because it is rumored New England's going to go after him as well. And then I see Drew Dahlman from the Atlanta Falcons is also possibly going to hit the open market. He's a great center. The Bears need a center. I could see him possibly going to the Bears as well. I think at best it's 2 offensive linemen. I don't think there's necessarily a nature where we're going to get 3. Whether it's 2 in free agency and 1 in the draft, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. I think at most it's 2 offensive linemen, whether that's the combination of 1 in the draft, 1 in free agency, or 2 in free agency, none in the draft. It's going to be something along those lines. But regardless, we've talked about it. We know what they got to do. They got to prioritize the trenches. They have to. It's as simple as that. That's what I got, man. That's what I got them doing. Simply.
Okay, so free agency begins March 12th this year.
Well, thank God, it's close, man.
March 12th.
Close.
And the draft is in April.
Yes.
So I will say this. The Bears need to prioritize in free agency spending all their money on the trenches.
Yeah.
The draft should be used to get skill players. So I think at number 10, they should be drafting Ashton Genty. Because if I'm the Bears, I'm not wasting my time in the draft on unproven commodities for the trenches. Unless it's a guy that is an absolute home run, and the only home run I see in the trenches is Abdul Carter. That's the only home run I see.
Okay.
Everybody else is good prospects,
yeah,
but they're not home run prospects. So if I'm the Bears, I don't even waste any time asking myself about what offensive or defensive line players outside of Abdul Carter. outside of him, I don't waste my time in the draft concerning myself about fixing the trenches. I only concern myself in free agency about spending whatever dime I have to spend to fix the trenches, whether that's trading for Myles Garrett, whether that's signing Drew Dahlman, getting Trey Smith, whatever you have to spend to get the trenches done in free agency, that's what you should be doing in free agency. All skill players and backup positions should be drafted.
Targeted in the draft.
Targeted in the draft.
I think
I wouldn't waste my time with outside of Carter. Once again, outside of Carter, I'm not wasting my time in the draft on the trenches because I need proven guys.
Yeah, and I mean, with the quote that was on the screen there from Ben Johnson, the goal is to win now. Of course, he's going to say that, but I think it's true though because again, you do have Caleb on his rookie contract before he does end up getting 50.
They have to win now, but that'll be a conversation for another episode
sure.
And I want to wait until free agency and the draft is over so we can have Bears expectations conversations.
Absolutely. So that's why I could definitely see your point. Coming to fruition is because they do need proven guys in the trenches. You can't waste your time for developing a guy, especially when you do have Caleb and Rome on rookie contracts, and you did pay Jalen Johnson, DJ Moore. Cole Kmet's contract is going to be coming up here soon. I think Darnell Wright is entering his 4th year, meaning they're going to have the opportunity to either pick up his 5th-year option or extend him. It's a lot of different ways that the Bears could go here. So yeah, I agree with your point. I could definitely see. I see the reasoning, but I unless the Bears trade up, Abdul Carter ain't going 10. That motherfucker going 10.
Yeah, I know he's not going 10. That's what I'm saying. Like, if it ain't Abdul Carter that you're drafting, then there's no need to waste your draft picks on the trenches.
So let me ask you before we move on real quick. Do you think that, I guess this does go with our next point with the NFL draft order, what do we do at 10? Do you think the Bears go... Is it worth it to go offensive line? Like,
no.
if there's a guy at 10, like if Will Campbell is at 10, do you take Will Campbell?
No.
Really? Okay.
No.
Why?
Because there's no point.
You think so?
Yeah, there's no point.
Okay, so do you think Will Campbell, like, when he comes into the league, he won't be ready? Is that what?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be ready to play the tackle position, and then you got to hope that he is able to play the guard, but you got enough guards on his team. I think you have to get guys that are ready to go right now. I don't have time for science projects no more. Mm-hmm. The Bears don't have time for science projects on the offensive line no more. They don't. One, they've already told us that they believe in Braxton Jones.
Yeah, true.
They've already told us that they believe in Darnell Wright. We haven't heard that they're targeting a tackle in free agency. Mm-hmm. They're targeting interior. So they've already told us that they technically believe in their tackle positions. What they don't believe in is the interior. So,
which is fair.
So, right. So, with that being said, getting Will Campbell is basically you trying to undermine the confidence that you've given Braxton Jones or Darnell Wright, which I think is more so Braxton Jones than Darnell. Mm-hmm. But you also have to implement this guy into the system, which you still do have to with Braxton. But Braxton has already had play on this level.
Yeah.
So he's learned some things, he's figured out some things, and you've already shown that you believe in him. Why waste that pick on an offensive lineman when you could be getting a top skill player or somebody like that? Why waste that number 10 pick on that? Why do that? To me, that makes no sense. And I can understand why people might say this guy's a fucking idiot. We need all this help with the trenches. Why would he pass up on the trenches? You pass up on it because if you're able to spend the money that you need to in the trenches, then you get proven commodities. Now, if we can't get anybody in free agency, if we're unable to sign the guys that we're looking for, then yes, you got to go trenches.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the draft.
And
but if you're asking me how you start this with signing who you need to sign in free agency so that you know specifically in the draft you can get an Ashton Genty.
Yeah, no doubt. And just to sum that up real quick, just to add on, I think right now the Bears sit at $66 million in cap. They're about 5th or 6th in the league. If they make the cuts that they're anticipated to make, they'll end up with around $100 million in cap space again.
Right.
So
because that includes Cole Kmet, right?
The cuts? No.
Right. It's Rome, Bayard,
You're saying
I'm not wrong. It's Keenan Allen.
The cuts?
Yeah, it's Keenan Allen, Bayard.
I don't even think it included Keenan. It was guys like Gerald Everett. He's a $14 million cap hit. Some of the other guys as well. Like there's guys that are making a significant amount of money that shouldn't be. But anyways, yeah, I think, again, they could end up with around $100 million. And, again, that's going to give you a lot of flexibility in free agency to pretty much go out there and offer top dollar for who you want. So it's really going to be a matter of, can we convince them that, that this
come to the Bears.
Exactly. Come to Chicago, play in the cold weather, which offensive linemen like to do, and believe in
some
Ben Johnson.
Some don't.
True. And believe in Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our last segment for the halftime report. The Bulls, pivoting back to the NBA. The Bulls and their rebuild. First question is, how long do you think this rebuild is going to take?
It's going to...
As we wait on the GOAT to return back to Chicago. It won't be Michael Jordan, but we're waiting on the next greatest of all time, because clearly...
At this point, it's what they need if they want anything to happen.
Clearly, that's the only way Chicago wins. We have to find a once-in-a-lifetime phenomenon.
How long will it take? I don't know. I think when this front office gets fired, it's going to happen. It's not going to happen this year because ownership came out and said they still believe in this front office, and
they also say they still believe in Billy too.
Right. So I mean, we'll see how that goes, but I think it's going to be a very lengthy process again, like kind of how it did. Post Derrick Rose when he got traded to New York all the way up until that 2020-2021 season. It's going to take that same amount of time, if not longer.
I think it's going to take the length it took from Michael Jordan to Derrick Rose.
Okay. I could see that happening too.
And that was what? When did Derrick Rose get drafted?
2008.
2008
or 07. It was rookie season. He won Rookie of the Year, which was 08, 09.
Yeah, so it had to be 07.
Yeah,
it had to be like 07.
Yeah.
And Michael Jordan retired in 1990. Well, he left the Bulls in 1998, the end of that season.
So 10
years. That's 9 years.
Yep.
That's how long this is going to take.
I could see that happening too, man. I don't doubt that at all.
That's how long this is going to take for us.
It'll probably take 3 to 4 years for this front office to be dispersed of, and then it's gonna take 2 to 3 maybe for the new front office to get accustomed to things, and then maybe they'll be able to try and build something kind of how AK and Embiid did when they first came here, and then it's not going to work again, and then we're going to do the whole process all over again because we're the Chicago Bulls.
We're never going to win, but let me ask you this. Since we're rebuilding, are there any young players on the roster that look like they can be franchise players?
Franchise, I'm not too sure. Do I think... I think our only hope at maybe landing an all-star, like one of our young guys becoming an all-star, is modest. I think that's literally it. Like I don't
Lil Boozy Vert,
like Stacey King says, right? Kobe ain't that. Kobe at best is going to be a starter that puts up 18 to 20, maybe in a different organization, maybe. And that's if he could find consistency. Patrick Williams ain't gonna be shit. He's going to be the same that he is now, maybe, unless he goes somewhere where he could get developed, like Denver. And Io at best is going to be a starter. Like, I don't believe in any of those three guys to actually become something of significance to a basketball franchise, like an all-star or superstar. I think Modest is your best bet just because of the experience and the skill set he does have and his length. I think he's very lanky. He could shoot the ball. Not consistently, but he can knock it down, and I think he's going to be able to improve on that as years come. He's athletic. He could put the ball on the ground and create for himself at times as well. I think he just needs to grow in maturity-wise as far as the pace of the game goes. Right now, he's playing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. If he could find a way for the game to slow down for him, I think he'll be a dangerous player. But, again, that's if those things could happen. Do I think it'll happen? I'm not too sure. I don't know anything. I don't think there's any certainty with the Chicago Bulls at all just because of our lack to be able to develop a player. You got to think about it in years past. When's the last time we've actually developed a guy into something? Like, we got blessed with Michael Jordan. We got blessed with Derrick Rose. Outside of those two guys, who have we really developed? Nobody. The Chicago Bulls cannot develop. Yeah, but he kind of grew on his own. Like, he became his own because of the players that were around him. I don't think it was the staff that grew him, and I think Jimmy Butler's just a gym rat.
Okay. I feel like Tom Thibodeau had a good
And
influence on him.
Tibbs too. You know what I mean? But he ain't with us anymore. Shit, we got Billy Donovan, which is proven he can't really develop young guys.
Yeah, I don't think any of our young players are franchise building players. I don't think you can build a franchise around any of them. I think with Modest, maybe he gives you your best hope. But I think the thing with Modest that I'm seeing earlier on is that he doesn't really have like a go-to package on offense. Like there's no go-to shot that he tries. There's no go-to 1-2 or mid-post fadeaway or sidestep this or anything that he gives me that I can feel like, okay, that's your move. That's your thing. And for me, that's a little problematic because it shows me that he hasn't developed something that he's confident at. That he has a lot of athleticism and skill set, but he hasn't developed some type of move that he can really say like, okay, this is the one that I know, boom, boom, I can do this just about every time. And that concerns me a little bit, but he is still young. Maybe the Bulls can help them figure that out. I know for sure he has to get a better shot.
Yes.
His shot is very streaky and spotty. Like I said, his most dangerous thing is that in transition, he can be his most dangerous. But you can't win basketball just saying I'm always gonna play in transition.
Yeah.
Like you can't be a superstar only being effective in transition.
Yeah. You gotta be able to do it in the half court.
You gotta be able to do it in the half court. You gotta be able to be impactful in that space too. So I think with Modest, if he can grow some form of a half court game, then yeah, we got something cooking. We got something to work with. But until he gets that, I'm sold on Modest being able to help a lot with somebody else who is a superstar. I just hope that, I guess, if the Bulls can find themselves getting a top 3 pick this year, they just have to make the right decision. And I don't know who that is. I know that Kendall Gill has already came out and said we don't need Cooper Flag, essentially by saying that Modest is our Cooper Flag. So he's essentially told the Bulls fans, like, we're not looking at Cooper Flag. So I don't know who that means that they're looking at. I don't know if that means that they're thinking of an Ace Bailey, Modest Buzelis type of link up. I don't know if they think that could be work well. I would like to see Ace Bailey on this team because I think he is the best prospect in college basketball. I like the way that Ace Bailey plays, but we'll see. I don't know, but I think the rebuild is going to take us a long time. And to be honest with you, I don't think the Bulls are ever going to win a championship until like maybe 4 decades from now.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime.
Coach, you know how old you are?
Yes, and that's how like how much doubt I have
in your life, in your lifetime.
Yes,
Coach.
Yes,
Coach.
Yes. I am fully aware. Yes,
that's a lot.
My answer is yes.
That's a lot of decades. Coach.
Yes, and my answer is yes.
You think that
My answer is yes.
Wow. Whoa.
I have no belief.
Whoa.
I have no faith until major things change. Until major things change. And they won't change because Chicago's too big of a market. It's not going to change ever. And the ownership is just going to be passed down within the Reinsdorf family, and it's going to.
Well, because they're going to make their money. As long as they make their money,
it's going to suck.
But that's why That's why the play-in is the worst thing that has ever happened for the Chicago Bulls fans, because the play-in will forever allow the Reinsdorfs to bank on all we need to do is be good enough to be 8 to 10.
Yeah.
As long as we're 8 to 10, we can fight for the playoffs.
Yeah.
And if we make the playoffs, cool. If we don't, we've spent an entire season making money off fans hoping that we can make the playoffs. And that's still good enough for us.
You know, that's the Chicago way.
That's not the Chicago way. That's the Reinsdorf way. But yeah, I'm glad that we were able to come together today for episode 21.
Yep.
I'm happy that we're still going strong. I am under the weather. I almost thought I wasn't going to make it today.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure whoever's going to hear this probably is going to hear my voice and be like, yeah, that dude is a little fucked up today.
Oh boy.
But it's been episode 21. It's been a great conversation with you, Coach K, today.
Yes, sir. Likewise.
I just want to remind all of our fans to like the video, share the video, subscribe to YouTube, follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok. We're looking to get to, what are we looking for now? About 500 followers on Instagram. And we're trying to get our subscriber up to, like, let's say 300 to 400 on YouTube. If we can get there, we got some great things coming for you guys.
Yes, sir.
We got some great things coming for you guys. So
Also, please hit the subscribe button. I'm seeing all you guys on the shorts and on the videos. 92.7% of you guys watching the videos are not subscribed. Please just hit the subscribe button. It takes 2 seconds, please. We would really appreciate
tell
it.
them that again, Coach.
92.7% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel but are watching our content. We love it, but please just take the 2 seconds, hit that red button for us. We would greatly appreciate you guys so we could keep pumping out this content for y'all.
Absolutely. Well, it's been another great episode of the Halftime Podcast. This is episode 21. I'm Coach Malcolm.
And I'm Coach Conrad, as always.
And as always, you know how we do it. See red and bear down, baby.